All right, so it was when I started this video 4:46 a.m. and then I had to stop because I noticed that I was filming my my email address again, and no offense, but I don't really want a lot of people that I don't know sending me emails. So I'm being more careful with the camera angle. Now it's 4:47 a.m., but I did begin at 4:46, or in space-time travel communication terms, 4:49. And I was wondering, and because I hadn't planned this out, I just began when I began, if in fact there is a significance to the space-time travel coordinate for 5:49. And I haven't, memorized all of the space-time travel communication coordinates. I don't know exactly how many there are, but there must be thousands by now. Let's go ahead and see what 549 would be. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then these are sets of 18 if I position the frame from bottom to top. So that's 18, and then another 18 is 36. Plus another 18 minus 5. And that's a possibility for the 546, and then I guess 547 would be this one. That's the complex set. Let's see if there's anything going on in the simple set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we'll just have to loop these because they don't go up to 8. So 49 would be 48 plus 1. Oh, I like that possibility quite a bit. And then 47 would be 48 minus 1. Rooksters. Like, I don't know, it's a play, I guess, on rock stars. Let's see if there's actually a German word. All right, so apparently Rooksters is not a loan word from English, but rather an actual German word, and it means fall back. And apparently a slightly different morphological construction of something very similar can mean, where did I just see that? Right, with an O and the double S, kick or recoil, as in the way that a fired gun has a recoil action, and the force, right, of the explosive and the bullet leaving the gun causes the opposite reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, causes the gun to move backwards and towards the individual firing the gun, right? So that's interesting. And then obviously, though, there's a pun here, since this is a rock band and it's a space rock band, right? And this word in English very much looks and sounds like rock stars. And I guess if you're a space rock band, then you're both about rocks and that stars is, a pun in and of itself, right? Because you're the star that is that's Caspar Hauser's learning curve in the background there. You're the star of the show, but you're also perhaps referring to the stars in the skies, which isn't what this German word represents, but, clearly this band, guru, right, is, or actually it's not guru, right? It's agitation free. I don't know why I was thinking guru, but clearly this band, agitation free, is thinking about, perhaps that pun. And many of these titles are, or at least some of these titles are in English to begin with. So you play for us today, and then that us, as in the context that we're looking at it today, could easily be a U.S. or the United States, and then everything that we've already said about this term. So although it's incidental or accidental that we began at 546, which we translated well into a 549, it's perhaps not without significative semantic and meaningful content. So that having been said, let's see if we can get back without too much trouble to that email, and I'm again attempting not to give away my email address, and I don't mean to offend anyone by not giving it away. I just, as I said, don't really care to have a lot of people whom I'm not familiar with have access to my email. All right, so once again, what we're doing today is we're continuing with this series in the Grip of ThermostatAnon, and I should perhaps make a comment of what the title of this series means, just in case you didn't watch the initial piece. YouTube has censored and removed one of these videos that was originally titled in the well, I won't give that away yet, in the Grip of MQ-MAGAn, which was a play from a Marvel Comics title or something said in one of the cover images for that particular comic, in the Grip of Dormammu, and this was a Guardians of the Galaxy feature, and the Guardians of the Galaxy need to save the galaxy from Dormammu. So I'm playing with this idea that the Guardians of the Galaxy need to save the galaxy from MQ-MAGAn, and MQ-MAGAn isn't synonymous with Donald Trump or even perhaps with Q, as in the QAnon, but is a sort of multifaceted construct, perhaps conceptual entity that may like QAnon or Q or whatever it is, may not actually have a singular identity, whatsoever. In the same way that perhaps, well, not in the same way, but in a similar way, that a contract in phi through theta, doesn't have a single identity, but is a construct, which allows us to utilize a number of characters in the representations of what we do, including Aaron, the AI, and Hedgehog, who has his own series and often interprets and misinterprets poetry, and to some extent Caspar Hauser's Learning Curve, and the other dogs, Leo and Fiverr, have roles in a contract in phi through theta, and Lori occasionally does a piece with us for which tends to be interpretive and satirical at the same time. But anyway, this construct of MQ-MAGAn, I imagined as being a sort of like ultimately evil, but lurking in the shadows, largely invisible entity that can probably most likely pass its malignance on into and through actual identities such as Donald Trump and perhaps Rupert Murdoch, Alex Jones, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson. I'm trying to think of those individuals who actually are represented in this video. Tucker Carlson, Michael Flynn, I believe is represented. Now Vladimir Putin is definitely an evil entity, but I don't imagine Vladimir Putin is part of this QAnon disease. And if I wanted to elaborate in a comic book style form, a metaphor for him, it would probably belong to some other evil entity in some other parallel universe. My wife is saying goodbye, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this down, and I'll start up again in just about 5 seconds. So that's and I'll show the image of the. You could say that the cover is almost like a story starter for us, and then when we get to the cover, I'll elaborate on what my idea of the plot was. And you have to keep in mind, this is all, I made this right after January 6th and the events of January 6th, and it's responding to the threat, right, of these conspiracy theories that promote stochastic terrorism and violence against capital, and that's what it's all about. So that's why I found YouTube's response to this video so ironic, right? Because what the video actually addresses is, right, the harmful conspiracy theories and does a lot of work, right, with them, and that work is how to say it, in some way a work of love, right? Because I don't receive any money whatsoever from YouTube or any advertiser, or so I have perhaps 2,000 and probably slightly less than 100 videos that I've made over the last 5 or so years. And which means that I pretty much make something every day. And it's not always political, but it's often political because I care about the country, and I care about democracy, and I care that we don't live in a place that sponsors or allows racism and violence and misogyny and homophobia and anything else, right? That and xenophobia, right, that contributes to the death and harm of immigrants, who live and work in our country, and that and it goes both ways, right? Like internal policy and external policy. I don't support or endorse any foreign policy that contributes to the genocide of any peoples, regardless of the religion or racial identification of those individuals. And I'm not one of those individuals who believes that if you recognize the policies of genocidal extermination and violent apartheid that's practiced against the Palestinian people, that makes you anti-Semitic. I don't see in those kinds of black and white terms. I can want to protect, right, the safety of Jews in the United States and outside of the United States, and still believe that the racist and harmful policies of Israel are something that we should not participate in, right? Anyway, so what we found We think your content didn't follow our policy or harmful conspiracy theories. We think your content didn't follow our policy on harmful conspiracy theories. Content that promotes, glorifies, or incites acts of violence through harmful conspiracy theories which have been linked to direct threats or violent acts isn't allowed on YouTube. Okay, so so my piece does exactly the opposite of that, right? It doesn't promote, glorify, or incite acts of violence through harmful conspiracies. It points to those acts of violence and insurrection that were committed on January 6th, and it puts it in a form, right, that is, you know, funny and sort of immediately accessible, but it tells the story in a way that brings a lot of the material to light that might be more difficult to talk about if it wasn't framed in a comic and cartoon form. Imagining that this video, right, supports a set of harmful conspiracy theories that lead to violence and insurrection is kind of like imagining that Picasso's Guernica is an endorsement of a fascist massacre in Spain. So let's talk about that comparison a little bit. Let's see if I can draw up something on the internet regarding Guernica. And I think Guernica, I don't know why I got on caps lock here. Okay, there's Picasso. Let's see if we can say a word. I think it's a good analogy because it's also in cartoon form. But that doesn't mean that that reduces the impact of the representation. Let's see if there's any information that I can just quickly draw up. And so there's Picasso's Guernica. There's the image, and then to provide some context, it says that Guernica is a powerful political statement painted as an immediate reaction to the Nazis' devastating casual bombing practice on the Basque town of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. So, you know, I like the way they frame that, casual bombing practice. So meaning often, but like, you know, sort of indiscriminate and with nonchalance, right? So something else going on here too. An immediate reaction, right? And so is in the Grip of MQ-MAGAn, an immediate reaction to the horror, right, of this event, the only insurrection against the U.S. Capitol in the history of the United States by this group of terrorists, or perhaps like you would say, not group, but rather confederacy of terrorists, because really the term confederacy is perhaps more relevant. A configuration of a multi-configured set of terrorist groups, right, that led this attack and assault on the Capitol. Guernica shows the tragedies of war and the suffering it inflicts upon individuals, particularly innocent civilians. Now, I don't really do that so much. show the suffering it inflicts upon individuals, particularly innocent civilians. I rather focus on the violence of the individuals involved, and particularly, and we'll get to that when we get to the image. But this idea that emerges in the story that I'm telling, that this event requires a hero to defend the United States from these kinds of attacks. Some kind of hero needs to emerge, whether it's the Guardians of the Galaxy or some other entity that can stop this violence, but also that can bring the perpetrators of this insurrection to justice. Right? That's what the whole plot is. So it's not about promoting the the Nazi bombing of the Basque town of Guernica, but rather it's a critique, and it's a human cry, right, against this type of violence, in the same way that in the Grip of MQ-MAGAn is. And then, of course, this is a painting, and it gives the dimensions of the painting. And of course, mine is a video, and it's composed of essentially like these comic memes, right? And that's how I tell the story, through this series of comic memes. And they're not put in linear order. They're disseminated in some other way that that has a certain kind of impact. But we've worked a lot with the way a story is told, and how plot works, and how elision is an ineluctable part of the art of storytelling, and how both flashback and flash forward, right, analepsis and prolepsis are critical to storytelling, and how no story is ever linear, and is never told in a linear manner, and that it's the imagination of the listener, and just like the way that I'm narrating this, when you remember what I'm narrating, you'll remember it in a particular order, but it doesn't really matter the order that I present this information in. The mind, right, that hears the story or reads the story is what reorganizes it into a kind of linearity, and can repeat the story in its own. And so the subject, right, of that mind can repeat the story in his or her own way, which is, once again, not going to be, entirely linear anyway. So that's part of what we do with the organization of this piece. But I will start with the initial image, and so with utilizing this analogy, the image in Picasso's mind is this, whatever he sees, the devastation that's the result of this particular bombing, or perhaps he conflates a number of memories of bombings that he has, since this bombing was a casual practice and occurred, often, right? So we don't know whether this is it's probably like a screen memory. It's not what Picasso really saw. It's what he remembers that he saw, which by necessity, because of the disturbing nature of the violence, draws upon a number of memories and a number of sort of protective psychological mechanisms, shutting out what is too horrible to remember, but fabricating aspects of horror that to fill in those blanks and gaps, and make sense out of what is essentially a chaos of violence, right? All right, so see if we can get back. to where we were. So, content that promotes, glorifies, or incites acts of violence through harmful conspiracies which have been linked to direct threats or violent acts isn't allowed on YouTube, right? And that's what we're addressing. We're addressing the fact that this piece that was removed, in fact, does the opposite. But if you look on YouTube, you'll find a lot of very like alt-right stuff, right? That does, like promote all of these conspiracy theories and repeat these conspiracy theories, and that's not being removed. So again, the irony here is that we're being censored in relationship to a policy that that shouldn't apply to what we're doing at all, since we are exactly critiquing and parodying and pointing out like all of the harm that these conspiracy theories do, right? So okay, so that's the irony. And onwards to the original image. Now, this is like the original image for the cover of this particular comic. It's Marvel Comics Guardians of the Galaxy, and then there's more information. I don't know how close we can come in. 36 May, I think this is 1993, I believe. I'm not sure that's available anywhere on this image, but yesterday, or the day before, whenever it was, I think it was the day before yesterday when I started the first piece, I was right. The original malevolent entity is Dormammu, who comes from the series, the magic series of Doctor Strange, and as in I suggested, he's Dormammu is one of these evil metaphysical characters who has the power to transform delusions and thoughts and fears into reality, and construct alternate universes, and to and like, right, like these evil lurking figures that that promote conspiracy theories, right? His goal is destruction, right, rather than positive creation, and death and mayhem and darkness and despair and fear and all of these things. All right, so here are the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I don't know, this guy seems to look an awful lot like a variation on Captain America, so perhaps the Avengers are part of this this project as well. And these characters are all going to attempt to defeat whatever evil plot the world, and galaxy destroying entity Dormammu, whatever plot and plan he has in mind, they're going to defeat that and save the galaxy from destruction, right? So explore the Marvel Universe in the 31st century with the Guardians of the Galaxy in the grip of Dormammu, right? Okay, and this becomes this image, Guardians of the Galaxy. This is a few minutes later from that initial image that YouTube complained about at 2 minutes and 6 seconds, or 2 minutes and 9 seconds. Perhaps if their thermostat understands the way that space-time travel community coordinate grammar inverts or switches, sixes and nines. But we've expressed some doubt about that. Guardians of the Galaxy in the grip of Q-MAGAnon, featuring the Galactic Guardians, and then the Galactic Guardians are all saying something about Mike Pence. Now, this could be slightly misleading, but I kind of like that it's slightly misleading, because I used this as the cover for the piece, but it doesn't arrive in the unfolding of the piece until 2 minutes and 21 seconds, or 2 minutes and 20 seconds perhaps. And but it is the story starter, right? And you could very easily misrecognize the placement of everything. And because Dormammu's there in the background, right? Mike Pence seems to be the representation of the Q-MAGAnon, right? But he's not. In fact, as the story develops, we learn that the Guardians of the Galaxy are in search of a hero that will defeat, the evil entity of Q-MAGAnon. And although it appears here that Pence is playing that latter role, in fact, he's in this particular narrative that I construct that satirizes the events of January 6th, 2021, Mike Pence is the initial candidate, for the hero that, along with the Guardians of the Galaxy, will protect the universe from fascism and ensure the safety of democracy into the 31st century. And he it turns out that he's not capable of doing that for perhaps a number of reasons, but those reasons will unfold as we look at individual images, from the series, or from the whatever you want to call it, story composed of these comic memes. And some of those are hinted at, perhaps here. So it raises the question, what's up with that weird eye? And that weird eye, I believe, turns out to be either level 7 or level 5, perhaps, of the. It's either the MAGA madness or the Q-MAGAnon madness. I think it's the MAGA madness, and the MAGA madness, and I've perceived, the MAGA movement as a kind of cult, right? But it's metaphorized as a kind of virus here in the story, and this virus has various consequences. It has the consequence of causing mass hysteria, and eventually, driving its proponents mad, and reaching a level of limbic aggression, I guess we could call it, or lizard brain, that shuts down rational thought, and that rational thought is replaced by angry chanting and acts of violence, and all of those things that the YouTube policy seems to worry about. Now, this is an image of Mike Pence that in that moment where the fly kept bothering him, and you see the fly here, and we play a little bit with the fly's attraction to Mike Pence. So again, a candidate, to save the universe and restore order, justice, security, and safety, right? Not just to the United States, but to the galaxy as a whole, is being sought, by the Guardians of the Galaxy, and this particular candidate, doesn't sort of to live up to the expectations, and we find out, why, and like I said, that some of the stuff is hinted at here. So what's with that weird eye? Well, that turns out to be, level 5 or level 7 of the MAGA madness, and well, let's see. Well, you got to admit, he really is. Oh, he's really good at attracting flies. So you know, so she's you know, speaking on his behalf. It's like, okay, well, here's something positive. He can attract flies. Like maybe he has a superpower that you know, he can utilize when he attracts these flies. And then Captain America is saying, this guy thinks he can guard the galaxy when he can't even safeguard democracy in his own backyard. And what's the criticism? It's like, does this mean that I'm supporting the Q-MAGAn on January 6th insurrectionists who wanted to hang Mike Pence? Well, absolutely not. Of course not. What it means is that Mike Pence had the opportunity in his role as vice president to invoke the 25th Amendment when all of this was hitting the fan, and he did not. He failed, right? So we don't support hanging Mike Pence here at a contract in fee through Theta, but we reject him as the hero that the future would pretend he was in the unfolding of these events, because he didn't do what needed to be done. He didn't stand his ground, and he didn't defend our Constitution and our democracy with the tools that he had available to him. And therefore the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I won't give away like who they choose, but ultimately like they choose another hero to defend you know, the galaxy, but you know, in this allegory, obviously the United States in this particular moment. So we talked about what the eye represents. We talked about oh, like okay, so you can't see this, but whatever this guy's character's name is, and I don't recognize him. He's oh, you know, this might be the weapons master from Guardians of the Galaxy. I can't remember his name, but sometimes they have different forms from one, you know, series to the next. In what universe is attracting flies a superpower? I believe he's saying, right? So kind of making fun of all of that. That's the setup. And as I said, this is not the initial image as the piece begins, but it was the cover image for the piece, because it's, as I said, it's sort of the story starter, and there's even like a kind of red herring in the story starter, where you think that Mike Pence is being selected, right, as the representation of the ultimate evil entity, Q-MAGAnon, when in fact, like, he's being evaluated as a potential guardian, right, of democracy, and the hero who can defeat Q-MAGAnon. So his face is presented in the same place as whatever the entity Q-MAGAnon, you know, might have been, if we're following the sort of visual narrative logic of the original. But you see that, you know, Dormammu is still lurking there in the background, and Dormammu and these sort of like you know, flat, less than human looking face that has this jack-o'-lantern kind of quality to it, right? Let's see if I can bring that up again. Did I think I closed it, and it's probably in the trash, so I have to bring it out of the trash. Where are you, Dormammu? Oh, there you are. Yeah, you'll see. Oh yeah, I have to take it out of the trash before you can open it. You'll see that it has like a jack-o'-lantern kind of look, right? So I was fine with, you know, that being the representation of that this sort of jack-o'-lantern, you know, face being a kind of representation of whatever, you know, Q-MAGAnon is, but like not really being offered, you know, kind of lurking in the background, you know, kind of hidden like behind the selection of the hero. And I think that's the only image in which we see like even a hint of the representation of whatever this figure, you know, Q-MAGAn is, because I didn't really want this figure to be any one in particular, because like I said, it seems to me that it has more qualities that it shares with a kind of virus or kind of like a subtle demonic entity that, you know, travels through individuals. Even, you know, Trump is just a symptom of this psychology of global fascism that's been emerging for the last 15 years or so, and easily replaceable, right, by a Vance or by a DeSantis or any number of individuals who can become the spokesperson for this rather more subtle Q-MAGAn entity. Oh yeah, and there are some like if subtle comic things going on with this, like Q is given a trademark here, playing with some of the motifs in the way that comics work, right? And see if there's anything else that I missed that's subtle. Can't see anything else in here. And then because I chose this particular format, right, for the unfolding of this slideshow, then you get other examples of other slides in the background that are in black and white. And here's another example of an individual who has reached the 7th or 5th level of the MAGA madness and developed the eye problem. Without giving too much away, we'll investigate what trial by thrones means in the language of Rudy Giuliani. You'll recall that he made some obviously like stochastic terrorism comment about believing that the result of the election should be determined by combat, if you recall. And then rather than walking it back, he tried to justify it by saying that it came from what is that series? I don't watch it, but oh man, what is it? It was wildly popular, and so this fantasy series, I'll have to look it up. Hold on. Yeah, okay. So the series was just called Game of Thrones, and like I said, I had no interest in it and didn't watch it. But when asked to, you know, justify his comment that this election should be decided by trial of combat, his response was it was a reference to the Game of Thrones. Here's the fascist ex-president pontificating on something. You may think Rudy Giuliani's recent call for a trial by combat was inciting violence, but here's what he has to say. Oh, it wasn't? So we can leave up, you know, whatever, YouTube can leave up Rudy Giuliani's comment, trial by combat, because unlike a contract and feed through Theta's parody of all this stuff, that wasn't an incitation of violence. Here's what he has to say. Shortly before a Trump-supporting mob attacked U.S. Capitol last week in a failed and deadly attempt to overturn the presidential election, Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal pro bono attorney, told the crowd, "Let's have trial by combat." And then there's a link to that. Maybe we can get there. This is the Huffington Post. Here we go. These are these are some images of the mob storming the Capitol, in case you didn't believe like that they were actually violent. And why are they chasing the white guy? I mean the black guy, because that's a little suspicious in terms of like their racial profile, right? We'll get to, like, I think it's the very first image or set of images where the Trump peas, and then there's a representation of green peas, and they're all saying different things in 2016, but in 2020 they're all saying white supremacy, and the reason that they're saying that is because so many of the of this confederacy of terrorists, of domestic terrorists, you know, belonged to organizations that promoted white supremacy, whether they were neo-Nazis or KKK members or Proud Boys or one percenters or the Blue Lives Matters, you know, folks that don't care anything, right, about the actual safety of the police, or they wouldn't be trying to harm police and security at the Capitol. But rather, like, they just don't like black folks is really what it's all about. Hours before a terrorizing bomb overran the U.S. Capitol, that was just a Freudian slip, right? Bomb, terrorizing. They all were like a bomb, though, right? Terrorizing mob overran the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday. Donald Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, clamored on stage and urged the very same crowd that would later turn violent to embrace trial by combat, right? And then claim that was okay because he was just making a joke or whatever. Let's go ahead and see if I can put this on. And then, of course, I transformed the...
Now, if they ran such a clean election, why wouldn't they make all the machines available immediately? If they ran such a clean election, they'd have you come in and look at the paper ballots. Who hides evidence? Criminals hide evidence, not honest people.
So he's inciting stochastic terrorism. So Rudy Giuliani is essentially inciting stochastic terrorism. Exactly what I'm being accused of by pointing this out, right?
But if we're right, a lot of them will go to jail.
So already the threat of our enemies will go to jail.
I'm willing to stake my reputation. The president is willing to stake his reputation on the fact that we're going to find criminality there.
And of course they didn't.
Joe Biden willing to stake his reputation.
Of course they didn't. And in Arizona, like, they counted the ballot 3 or 4 or 5 times. I believe it was only 3. But like, even the people who recounted the ballots in Arizona, hoping to find more evidence that Trump might have won the electoral vote in Arizona, came up with nothing. But the same people who came up with nothing and did the counting still couldn't believe the evidence in front of their own eyes and their own fingers in the counting process, but still denied the results of the election, right? As he is doing here, for which he's been disbarred and a lot of other stuff. But can I go back to the image? Okay. So anyway, what we translated that into, and we'll get to there eventually, was, since he said that his reference to trial by combat was a reference to the Game of Thrones, which you'll recall the title of that series I couldn't remember, we transformed that into trial by thrones, and then the thrones, you know, were represented by those golden toilets that here's one of them. So trial by thrones was depicted as a trial by toilets, essentially. I think we even saw a reference to that in the piece that we did the day before yesterday, but I could be wrong and misremembering what we've seen and what we haven't. Yeah, we'll get there. There's a lot of Rudy in this because Mr. Giuliani was a big part of the conspiracy theory that led to the insurrection, and no matter what he claims, like these little moments and speeches before a potentially violent, terrorist, audience, like make that pretty clear, and you can't dispel that by saying that the line comes from cheesy series that ran on Netflix or whatever it was, Hulu or whatever channel it might have been. You can't really, go back and dispel it, right? It's there. So anyway, this is the image that is our story starter, and I've said a lot about how the story progresses. There's an incident, right? And the safety of democracy is threatened because of this insurrection and this violence of this confederacy of terrorists, and someone is required, right, to in this particular moment in time, following January 6th, 2021, some hero is required to preserve democracy into the future, as far into the future as the 31st century, for democracy to survive in the galaxy of the future. And one of the candidates that the Guardians of the Galaxy consider is Mike Pence. And of course, the immediate threat, during January 6th for Mike Pence there was a threat that this confederacy of terrorists, including the Proud Boys and all the rest that I just mentioned and more, and we'll break that down by group, later as we go on. But I don't want to spend too much time, delving into all that until it comes up. But the immediate threat, for Mike Pence and perhaps, the initial impetus for selecting him as a candidate is that this confederacy of terrorists wanted to hang him, and we've made reference to that as late as the last few weeks, because it's come up, and what Donald Trump's response was when he heard that they wanted to hang Mike Pence, and said, "So what?" So if you want our response to that, there's a video called "So What," and it uses Ministry, the American Industrial Band with Paul Barker and Al Jurgensen. They're from The Mind is a Terrible Thing to Taste. The collage piece. I think all of that record is sort of like collaged in a certain way. That one and the next one, Psalm 69. But we use the piece, "So What," and that response of Trump's, right, should perhaps, have provided Mr. Pence with enough evidence that Trump was not only a threat to democracy, but to his own, personal safety, and acted with the courage and tenacity and fortitude that the position of vice president that should be associated with the position of vice president in the United States. And our argument is that his moment of heroism, right, depended upon his ability to have the courage and strength and independence, right, to enact the 25th Amendment and have Trump removed from office for violating the Constitution, because he clearly did. And anyone, in my opinion, who says that Trump didn't violate the Constitution in supporting the terrorism of January 6th, and you'll recall, and you can do the research if you don't believe me, Trump continues to this day to say that he won this election, and continues to this day to say that all of these individuals, including those who murdered police officers in January 6th, will be pardoned if he becomes president, and continues to this day to say that all of the enemies that claimed, right, that he didn't win the election, he will go after, and they will be prosecuted. And anyone who doesn't believe in everything that Trump says is an enemy, and everyone will be prosecuted. And all of these folks who committed all of these crimes will be pardoned. And he continues to say this to this day. And that's why we do our work. That's why we do our work, and that's why we're not intimidated by the threat of censorship, because we're not Mike Pence, okay? So just in case the thermostat at YouTube doesn't get that, that's not who we are.